Welcome back to WRPL. It's the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And we just got done with our media bracket, and we said, fuck it. We want to talk about Barbie and Oppenheimer, so we're just doing it now. It's fresh in our minds. Yeah.
We're Barbenheimer. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's excited.
You got to get your finger on the pulse. So do I release this one, like, same week? So we have the views and the clicks and stuff because it is popular, or just put it out next week and just save it?
You know what? Release them both.
Oh, man, that's so much editing for me.
I mean, it's up to you.
All right.
I just figured release Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then like halfway through the week we have a special episode.
Yeah.
Like for
the media bracket, but I could see like, well, why isn't Barbie and Oppenheimer on there? That episode came out before you did your bracket.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Because
the same day.
We're going to have to change that die. We're on a new year. Oh. Welcome to year 3, Steve.
Woo!
Year 3 of WRPL. We start middle of the year. It's a bit weird, but it is what it is.
I'll pull out multiple 20-sided die,
okay,
and you get to pick which one we use.
And we'll use a different one every year. Oh, they're all just black. Oh, let's use the blue one.
The blue one?
Yeah.
All right.
That's our colors and everything. So, yeah, no news, no bullshitting around, no catching up on other stuff. Sunny, we'll talk about it next week. We're just talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer. This may be a 35-minute episode. It may go on 2 hours and 35 minutes. We're going to see. So we got to start with a fresh roll, fresh die, get a good, beautiful blue one. Hey, this year, let me start.
Okay.
Let's switch it up a little bit even more.
You just signed your own death warrant, sir.
18! That's how you start a new season of Whirlpool.
And this is how you end it. With a 19, my friend.
Holy shit!
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Best roll
Woo!
yet. 37 in a row? Thank you. I'm glad you got that. All right, so we're going to talk Barbie first. And then Oppenheimer second, because we're also going to rank Nolan's filmography.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's get to it. So Barbie was written and directed by Greta Gerwig, who you may know from Lady Bird or Little Women, and also co-written with Noah Baumbach, who did like Squid and the Whale, Marriage Story, and other things. Well, those are the ones I know. And it stars Margot Robbie and what's his fucking name?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, yes. Thank you.
As Barbie and Ken.
As Barbie and Ken. Ooh, where to start on this one? I think the best place to start is a little synopsis from my friend Steve. You don't have to read it from IMDb. You can do it on your own. You're a big boy.
Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, lives in a utopia of Barbieland, where she lives with all the other Barbies who have kind of come throughout all the history of Barbie and all the Kens, and they live in happy bliss until one day Barbie kind of realizes she's having an existential crisis and needs to figure out what her place is in the world, and discovers that there is a real world, our world, outside of Barbieland, and she goes on an adventure of self-discovery.
Very nice. And
Thank you.
And Ken is there too.
And Ken is there too.
So, this movie's got a ton of hype. It's got like a cult following before it even came out. People, they're going to love this movie regardless, I think. They're going to just think it was the best thing ever. It's going to be on a lot of people's top 10 list. And I think they were already set in stone because it looks great. It's cast great. And what a fun concept. Lego movie, but Barbie. And I don't disagree with any of that. I really love this movie. I had a great time. I thought it was very funny, and everyone was cast well, and amazing set design. All things we'll get into, but it may not be perfect. Mm-hmm. It may not be, I don't know, as clever as maybe we thought it was going to be, but I still think it hits every mark pretty well. Like, it's on base, like, every time it swings. I don't think it strikes out in many of its jokes or its story beats. But
It might be a home run, but it's not a grand slam.
Sure, I gave
If
this.
we're doing baseball metaphors.
Yeah, I gave this an A. I think this is an extremely well made movie with very likable characters and a fun story with not too much that I disliked. What about you?
I agree with pretty much everything you said, which is never fun for a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that I would give it an A minus
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like an A is a little too high. I do have notes, but I did more or less have a very good time in this. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I say I really liked it.
Okay.
So let's start with set design.
Yeah.
What fun!
Amazing.
This is the movie to beat in terms of production design.
Uh-huh.
I feel, and I know it's kind of easy to take
Yeah,
the reference point
of everything, the clothing and the dolls exist.
Yeah,
the
I don't
toys
even know if
exist.
this could be up for best costume design because it's just
Sure.
taking all the design.
Look
But
at any period piece. They just look at old paintings and then they
Touche.
copy that. So
But yeah, the costume design is great. The production design is great. You took child's toys dream houses and just made them larger than life, and it just looks so good.
yeah,
Uh,
and any sort of most of it looks practical.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some CG effects. I thought maybe there would be some, when they're traveling and it's going from like the space to a boat and stuff. That's actually on a set with like moving backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. It's like very almost like 1920s, 30s era filmmaking, but just modern day take on it.
Did you did watch Beau is Afraid or no?
I did not.
Okay, never mind. So like any CG that's in here is hidden pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
If it is done with just like the simple backgrounds. Obviously when her car flips upside down,
sure,
there's things like that, but everything looks like really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big fan of hot pink, and I had a fear that this was gonna really bug the shit out of me because that's Barbie's MO and everything's hot pink, but it really didn't. It just looked beautiful.
I think if we're talking actors, you got a bunch of very attractive people to be Kens and Barbies, and that makes sense. But performance-wise, I mean, she's great and everything, but goddamn, Margot Robbie puts in a great fucking performance
every time. Even in, like, we were talking earlier about Babylon, regardless of what you think about the movie, she's killing it. She really knocks it out of the park. And for pretty much every role I've seen her in, there is one where she plays twins, and I think Simon Pegg's in it. It's terrible. It's not very good. But she always gives it her all. And every time she's on screen, you can't help but smile. She just has such a lovely face and a beautiful smile that if she's smiling, I'm smiling. And it just forces your brain to go, I'm having a good time. So even if maybe a joke doesn't land, you're still looking at Margot Robbie and you're just, all the endorphins are just rushing to your brain.
There's a line in the movie where Barbie doesn't feel pretty, and it's Margot Robbie going, I'm not pretty. Mm-hmm. And the movie even points out, the filmmakers would like to mention that this is a poor choice to make an example of by having Margot Robbie say she's not pretty. Yes. So even the movie itself recognizes that, like, it's absurd that Barbie can feel, like, is complaining about her looks.
Mm-hmm. But it's got to be hard to be her. I mean, it must be so hard to be Margot Robbie. But Barbie is always considered like the pinnacle of beauty. She is standards that nobody can really hit. Her measurements are impossible. And we haven't really gotten anybody to play this character that wasn't a voiceover, a cartoon of some kind. And so that pressure must be really hard to be like, I have to be what's considered the most beautiful toy in all the land. And I know, woe is her, but
at the same time, I think it feels like
pressure.
Yeah, once they announced, Margot Robbie's going to play Barbie, no one questioned it. Everyone was like,
duh.
Yeah, obviously, that makes sense.
Because apparently there was going to be a movie a couple years ago, and it was Amy Schumer was Barbie, and like I guess they didn't really like where that story was going, so they shelved it. It would have been interesting to see.
Like, I'd be interested to see what that
is. But I'm glad they went this way.
So her performance was great and surprisingly really heartfelt.
Yeah.
there were scenes in the back end of this movie that I thought really, really worked for me
Mm-hmm.
in terms of emotionality and heart. And then we talk about the Ken performance. We've seen Ryan Gosling be funny, and I would say
Mm-hmm.
if there's I think, kind of scene stealing performance, it's him.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really just these two for the
Yeah.
majority of it. There's not a they interact with tons of characters, but those characters essentially just uh,
They're completely secondary.
secondary
Like
characters.
you
Yeah,
take Alan, and he even like shows up, and he's in the car one time, and he beats up some construction workers, and it feels like oh, Alan's gonna have his own arc too, but then he doesn't,
yeah,
and like there's a bunch of Kens, and they all kind of just go through the same thing, whatever our main kin is doing, or beach kin, I should say.
yeah,
Uh, they're doing the same thing, and if he learns his lesson, then they learn their lessons. Everybody is, but I think that's maybe also kind of the point. They're not individuals.
yeah.
They are just their careers or their clothing. I don't know. Someone smarter can articulate that better.
But that being said, I think Ryan Gosling is very funny in this.
He's killer in
Yeah,
this.
he's very good. I don't think it would get him. There's a chance, a very small chance, but I don't
Yeah,
think it's going to get him an Oscar nomination because he is just playing hot, dumb, buff guy, which
yeah. But maybe like a
Chris
Golden Globe or something.
that Chris Hemsworth has been playing for a
Mm-hmm.
long time at this point. So while the characters are new, I think it's a fun idea take on this toy that
Mm-hmm.
is a secondary individual to the star that is
Yeah,
Barbie
it's Ann Ken.
and Ken.
Ann
Yes,
Ken.
but he gets a nice kind of unexpected turn that I didn't
Sure.
see coming from this movie, and a nice little mini arc at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I,
yeah,
I
so I think these two are great together all the way through.
they are really good together, but in the middle of the movie, they split them apart. Ken goes away, goes back to Barbie Land, and Barbie is in the real world with America Ferrera and her kid. And it's a little bit of a sag. They work so good together that when you
Mhm.
take them apart, you just are waiting for them to come back together. They each have their own individual good scenes, but if they're not on screen together, I lost a little bit of interest. But like even that, it's still good. Barbie has a lot of great stuff with America Ferrera and doing things with Will Ferrell, who's barely in this movie.
Yeah. So let's talk about Will Ferrell and America Ferrera.
Mm-hmm.
Will Ferrell is severely underused, which I
Yeah.
don't dislike. It's
Mm-hmm.
just considerably, arguably one of the greatest comedy actors of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Just funny and everything. Always
Yeah.
He might be in bad movies,
Sure.
but it's not necessarily because of him that it's bad.
Yeah.
And he's barely in this, and I think it's kind of a shame because I think he does have the ability to sort of elevate the scenes that he's in. I think really work,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the Will Ferrell CEO movie. It's
Yeah.
the Barbie movie, so
Yeah.
I get why. And then America Ferrera, I think this is where the movie is at its weakest with
Mm.
her. Not because I dislike her character or she puts on a bad performance or anything. It's just there's another movie here where it's a mom trying to connect with her daughter. Her daughter grew up, doesn't play with Barbies anymore. They had so many joyous memories of Barbie, and so Barbie has a special place in her heart as an adult. And there could have been a balance of it's like growing up and like losing the childhood, and so you try and bring that childhood with your daughter, but then she grows up and she hates Barbie, and you're still holding on to this dream of Barbie. And there was something there that they could have done that just didn't really come anywhere. Like when Marica Ferreira sort of like brings Barbie to the real world, they open the portal, as they say,
Mm-hmm.
because she's drawing existential crisis Barbie. She's drawing cellulite Barbie. Like she's coming up with these sort of ideas of like how she's feeling and putting them into Barbie, and that doesn't really go anywhere. It's just a means to bring Barbie to the real world,
Yeah.
where it's like she has a connection to this family, but really it's not. The connection isn't that important. It's just I was your doll,
Mm-hmm.
but neither of you really care about me personally. You just care about the idea of me, I guess. But
And
I don't know. It's just I feel like there's something there that just doesn't. It's just we need a excuse to bring Barbie to the world so we can bring America Ferrera there
Yeah.
and then tell everyone why the world and the patriarchy is bad.
Mm-hmm. And I think in another movie you would have, say she's fighting Ken at the end, and like, oh, I'm not strong enough, and so America Ferrera goes like, oh, power lifter Barbie, and all of a sudden she gets muscles and can do things, and like, oh, or linebacker football Barbie, and she gets a helmet and stuff. Like that would be some sort of weird secret power that they can use, which I'm fine that they don't. But you're right. It is just a means to get her to the real world, and you kind of abandon things because that's kind of like the rules of these
Yeah,
worlds.
the rules of this
don't make any sense, and don't worry about it. And I'm glad that they don't focus too much on it, because like with Toy Story, people have really dug down and said, well, what happens in this situation and why are they real? And this, it's just like, who cares? Your imagination is in some foreign land, and the Mattel people are aware of it and they know it. And for some reason, you adjust things there, it will affect the means of production in the real world, like the Mojo Dojo Casa house becomes a real playhouse in the real world, even though like
seemingly instantly,
yeah, like no one created the plastic molds for it, nobody drew up any sort of creative things, it just kind of happened. So it does have this weird unexplained rule of how they can both influence each other, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's absurd, but
oh, to get back to Barbie Land, you got to rollerblade on the beach. There's other people rollerblading on the beach, and they don't go. Will Ferrell and all of his cronies can get in just because. Is it a belief thing, or you just
you have to know it's there?
Yeah,
or whatever. So let's see what else. It
was nice seeing Simu Liu.
Yeah,
especially since I just finished the other two, and there's a big Simu Liu arc in that show. It's having a little nice 2023.
Yeah, his rivalry with Beach Ken, I really enjoyed, and they're both just so nice to look at, and, so funny together. I'd love to see Simu in more stuff, because we've really only seen him do like bit parts, and then Shang-Chi.
Just waiting on that Shang-Chi chit. God, that was hard to say. Shang-Chi 2.
But okay, let's go to the ending for a second.
Okay.
At the end of this movie, the Kens rise up, and Ryan Gosling's character realizes, oh, the patriarchy is great for men.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this back to Barbie Land. And so the men take over and make things worse. And
make all the other Barbies kind of like stupid and submissive and kind of forget who they are.
Yeah, just keep bringing them beers and sandwiches and stuff. And the only way to defeat the Kens is essentially turn them on each other, because this means war. And there's a really great Saving Private Ryan beach battle scene, and none of them have guns, because Barbies and Kens don't carry guns.
Nope.
So they just kind of fight with toy bows and arrows and lacrosse sticks and
tennis rackets,
frisbees. And it's just this absurd action sequence that's just a ton of fun.
And that's also a musical number, because Ken's singing the whole time, and then they do like kind of like a Grease sort of. I don't know. I want to say they look like greasers, just like the black shirts.
But I loved that dance number at the end, just on this big giant soundstage that they used to do for like movies like Sing in the Rain. That you just really don't see anymore, and it's just gorgeously shot, and it's well put together. I really loved that whole beach into that dance number sequence. It's great. The soundtrack for this, I think there's several original songs from like Dua Lipa and Billie Eilish. All that work really well,
and like funny songs
that
are just playing in the background that I thought was just a pop song until I listened to the lyrics.
Because you have the one song about Barbie waking up and waving hi to the neighbor, and then you have that same artist doing the same song again, or it sounds like it, but it's like, and she wakes up and she's thinking about death, and it's just like kind of just funny little lyrics that plays off of it. I think Greta Gerwig is great. I haven't seen Little Women yet.
No,
I would like to
now,
but because I really, really liked Lady Bird. I enjoyed this movie. I think she's I think this movie shows she can probably do anything and make it good, which is exciting. And one thing of note, when you saw this movie, was your theater packed?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
I went relatively early on a Friday or Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, mine was, and there were a bunch of people dressed up.
Oh, there were everybody in my theater besides me was wearing pink. Everybody
Okay.
coming in, leaving the theater, there was a
Yeah.
lot of people
I mean,
wearing
I
pink.
saw there were people wearing pink, or there were people just full blown in like dresses and
Yeah.
matching outfits and all that kind of stuff.
I like it when movies can be an event.
Yeah, and I thought that was so cool because I was talking to my wife about this. Like, we have Marvel movies and superhero movies and just all these movies that, you know, like there's Captain Marvel and stuff that aren't necessarily dude centric, but for the most part, it has always fit into this very dude centric, or at least stereotypically dude centric world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been those are the event films. It's so neat to see a movie about a pretty girl in a pink dress, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Yeah, we're pumped for this," and everyone got dressed up for it. I think that's so fucking cool
Yeah.
to see.
When
This is their Star Wars.
Sure.
This is their Marvel, their Lord of the Rings, whatever.
When we worked at the theater, there was like one of the last Harry Potters came out, and people were lining up, wearing their robes and having their wands, and people would do that. And people don't do it anymore because movies aren't events at all. It's either you're people like us, you go to the movies regardless because you want to see it, or you're the people who, I'll wait till it comes on streaming because everything just comes to streaming so damn quick. Studios are idiots for that. They should really have been spacing this shit out, but no, you gotta push it out as quick as you can. So you don't get that big event thing in smaller towns like where we live. I could understand big LA premieres, New York premieres. You're gonna have kind of industry people who want to dress up, and you get the influencers and stuff like that. But when in just state redacted here, it is nice to see people go hard for things because I can't think of anything else earlier or later in this year that people are going to do that for.
Yeah, probably not. And we've even seen people it's not really dressing up for Oppenheimer, but they're dressing up for Barbenheimer.
Yeah. To do a double feature.
Credit to the marketing teams who, like, I don't know if it's cross studio things or if it's
no, it was just memes. Memes really took it, and everyone said, "Yes, I'm all for it."
Yeah, either way, it worked wonders for this weekend. People wearing half black, half pink shirts and custom stuff. It's pretty cool.
Another release today was the Venture Brothers movie, and I went to Walmart because I had to do a little shopping anyways. They didn't have it. They never even got it in. I really.
One thing I'd like to say that I got to be careful as I say this.
Remember, Steve is a white male.
It's
a little preachy. It's a little woke.
No, well, I wouldn't say woke, but it is very heavy-handed with its message. It's very. There's no subtext. It's all
text.
It's all text.
That's it's the plot is this thing, not like, well, we're doing magic and hand waving to make you think it's one thing, but it's actually meaning this. No, it is this.
Yeah, so I think there are definitely people who are gonna hate it for that, and we're not gonna talk about them because I don't want you to go down a rabbit hole.
I know, but I guess like people. Ben Shapiro has like a 30-minute rant on YouTube, and I want to watch it.
So when they come to the real world, instantly every single dude they ran into was a complete and utter scumbag. Instantly, it's they come out of the world, they instantly got weird looks, which they're dressed weird, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
but then it's catcalling. It's a random dude instantly just smacking on the butt for seemingly no reason other than like he could.
Yeah.
And I get why. It's part of it, and so like that doesn't upset me by any means.
And I would say any woman would go like, well, yes, they are in the real world now, so you got to portray it.
I mean, I like the joke where she's like, I feel uncomfortable, or I feel like there's a looming sense of violence. So I thought, I mean, that's not funny, but I get
the self-awareness
of the joke is funny. But it just felt like, and especially because Ken, and I like Ken's journey of like,
Ken's the villain. Ken's the bad guy in this.
The patriarchy is good for me. Why would I not want that in Barbenheimer? I love that, and I like them going to the real world and like, everything's not great for women here. That all works. It was just like, for a brief period, I was like, because I thought, like, we haven't even gotten to the CEO.
Mhm.
He's going to be a scumbag. Every single male character we run
And
into,
he's not as scummy as I thought.
no,
they were
and that's
gonna
what
make him.
that's where it turned it around for me.
Yeah.
It's like, is everybody in this movie other than Alan, who, no disrespect to Michael Cera, is like the not hot one?
Yeah.
Is
And
that
I don't
going
know
to
what they did with his makeup, but he is weird looking in this movie.
Yeah.
He looks
It's
like a howdy doody sort of ventriloquist dummy.
Oh, that's good, actually, yeah. But the fact that she goes and meets Will Ferrell, and you find out, no, like, yeah, men run this company, but they care about little girls
Mhm.
and their dreams, and they want to make a good product that is inclusive. Like, that's where I think it saved the movie for me, as opposed to just, nope, every single dude you see in this movie is a piece of shit,
Yeah.
other than Alan.
Yeah.
Because they're not all pieces of shit.
Yeah, it could have been Will Ferrell going, oh, we need to roll back, and no, the handicap Barbie needs to go. Oh, no, there's too many Barbies of color. They need to go. It wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
And they
Will
could have
Ferrell
made
was
him
just
worse.
a good dude who just happened to be a man who runs this company.
Yeah.
I
I wouldn't say a good dude. He still falls into the category of the shitty people. Like, he's trying to justify, like, oh no, we've had a woman run before once in the 90s. You know, it's like he thinks that's like a good enough answer, and that's not a good answer.
Maybe I'm just interpreting. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think, yeah, the point is, like, yeah, there hasn't been enough women there. But I think if you're confronted with, oh, this kind of fuck, you instantly are going to try and want to defend yourself.
Yeah,
I don't think
sure.
it was him going like, well, because we had this one, everything else is okay. It's just,
we at least had one.
Unfortunately,
you know?
This is just the
Yeah.
state of things,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it is what it is.
I like that Mattel was willing to like let them get clowned on.
Oh yeah,
That's
100%.
great. You want to use the original creator and make her look great and us look like shit? That's fine.
Yeah.
Because they apparently Mattel has like 45 movies they want to work on from products, things like Viewmaster and
Yeah,
like,
what other Mattel? What are some famous Mattel products? Because
they had a whole list. You want?
Oh, okay.
You want to go through them?
knock them out real quick.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, so here's 14. This is from Screen Rant. Masters of the Universe, which I
Okay.
think makes sense, but
They've had a cartoon.
they've had multiple
Yeah.
cartoons. They've had a movie. They've had a lot of chances. He-Man's dumb. He-Man's dead. Let it be dead. Hot Wheels.
That's not a thing.
Yeah. Is it cars that are alive
Are
and
people
like
driving these super?
yeah? Does the kid get shrunk down to drive these cars? Are the cars like the cars in Cars, where they're living cars?
Sick cars again.
And then this one's kind of weird. It's in development with Daniel Kaluuya and A24, and it's a Barney movie. Like, what?
Huh?
Yeah,
Barney's Mattel? I mean,
I guess they
wasn't
own.
Was Barney a show first,
Show-
and they just own
Yeah, they
the
just
toy
own it.
rights?
Yeah, or they own it completely. And Barney movie has been in the works since I was in junior high, and then I think even later Trey Parker was asked to do a Barney movie. I think maybe right before South Park or maybe after season 1 they approached him, and he's like, it was gobs of money, but I'm like, what do I give a shit about Barney? So
Yeah, okay.
Polly Pocket, Major Matt Mason. What the fuck is that?
Never heard of him.
Okay. Rock'em Sock'em Robots,
Okay,
which
there's potential there.
we kind of already did with Real Steel, but
Yeah.
it's a way to do it differently.
Sure.
Uno? How do you make a movie about Uno? Pitch me the Uno movie, Steve.
You draw 4. There you go.
Oh, good. Yeah, is it like
You skip it.
you're fighting for your life and you gotta win, otherwise the others are killed? Or do you go dark that way, or like the cards are special
What's the dark,
power?
gritty Uno.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I got the reverse card that allows me to go back in time. I have the skip card. I can jump forward in time. Like, what is the Uno movie? That's weird. Magic 8 Ball, which That could be a horror. That could be like a sex comedy, really. Does the girl next door love me? Shake it up. Outcome doesn't look good. There's a lot I think you could do with that. American Girl, which you think just Barbie. Viewmaster.
That's just the thing that you click on the side and
you go, wow, it's a picture.
Yeah.
It's a cool looking picture. There's always like good depth to it and it's nice and clear. But is it a Jumanji thing? You get sucked into whatever picture is there or whatever's in you're looking at comes out of the thing into the real world. What is it?
I think it's you find a magical viewfinder, you click it, and then you go inside. And you don't necessarily go to the picture itself, but you meet the Viewmaster. And he's like an ancient wizard type character.
He's like the Watcher,
Yeah,
he views it all.
I am the Viewmaster. You have entered my realm, and for you to escape, you must travel these sights unseen.
You have to get around the whole card that you put in.
Yeah, to do something.
Yeah. Learn the power of friendship or something.
Yeah.
Chatty Cathy and Betsy Wetsy, a little bit older dolls, but we're going to do a movie about a doll that pisses herself and one that complains. Yikes. Thomas the Tank Engine, that just seems like that's...
Okay.
Thomas has been around for a while.
I think
that's
they've done cartoons.
Big Jim. It's just a big action figure from the 70s.
what was that that South Park commercial with the guy with the bowling ball? It just reminded Big Jim.
Alabama Man. Alabama Man. He's big, he's strong, he's stupid. Yeah. And then number 1 is Matchbox. But how is Matchbox and Hot Wheels different?
Yeah.
I think like Matchbox is you get the like true version of a real car that exists, and then Hot Wheels are like, I could get the Batmobile and an ice cream truck and things like that.
Yeah, it's
just like, combined them.
It seems like other toy companies build stories around their toys, where other than He-Man, all those you just listed don't really have stories. Like Barbie has the thinnest mythology possible.
Has stories with jobs. That's about it. And Midge was pregnant. Did you know Midge was pregnant from Alan?
I did know that after I watched the movie. I did some IMDb trivia.
I'm surprised they didn't have any sort of
interaction.
Yeah, just like, hey, Midge, can I come over? And like, you see what happened last time you came over. But that may ruin the sex joke from earlier since they don't know what sex is, but whatever.
It would be funny that if Michael Cera was the only Ken with genitals.
Oh, yeah. Is that a thing? Like, everybody else is so smooth, but he actually can?
And that's why
Midge is pregnant.
But
or it's like, she's just always created pregnant. She doesn't ever give birth.
It's Alan's baby, but it's like an immaculate conception. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Alan is God.
Alan's Joseph.
This is the real story right here when I get into it. But, all right, let's go back to Barbie for a second.
Okay.
We meet Ruth Handler, I think is her last name.
Okay.
The creator of Barbie.
I thought you were talking about like America Ferrera's character.
No.
Yes.
Well, played by Rhea Perlman.
Yes.
Because at first, when she meets her, I was like, this is clearly someone important. I told my wife, I was like, do you know who that Ruth is? I thought like maybe she was another doll from Mattel or something. It was like, I'm a forgotten toy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was just like, Ruth is the one who invented Barbie. I was like, that's kind of neat that.
I like the joke from Will Ferrell. Like, yeah, that's the ghost of the creator. She rents out a room on floor 17. I like that everybody's kind of in on the joke. Like, they know there's a secret world and how ridiculous it is, and you could get there by rollerblading, and a ghost rent space from them.
But they have a really lovely scene at the end too that I thought was very effective. Of just like, I created Barbie, I named you after my daughter, and I made you because I wanted her to be anything, and that's you can do whatever you want. You want to be human? Great. Whatever you do in the human world, that's up to you. You always have, I don't know, it just was really beautiful.
It was a nice moment.
Very, very cool and very well done.
And I know you were shitting all over America Ferrera earlier.
That's not true.
But I think she does have like one of the better speeches. She really when she's explaining it to all the Barbies of
Yeah,
why it's awful to be a woman in the real world. I think that they're all really good points, and I probably one of my favorite parts of that movie is just kind of like I don't want to say shoving it down your throat, but really presenting like heavy handedly of like, yeah, this is why everything is pure shit.
I would like to be clear that I think America Ferrera is great in this, and I agree that speech is good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just think her character is slightly wasted on a potential of more. I wanted her character and her daughter more fleshed out because they have the mother daughter relationship, and it's like, oh, I don't like you, mom, you're lame. And then instantly, once they get to Barbie Land, it's like, yeah, we're cool and we love each other, whatever. It's just instantly done
Yeah,
with.
it is.
Uh, and or you could have had more interaction with Barbie and the daughter because the Barbie was like, "You're the what's wrong with the world, yada
Mm-hmm.
yada yada. I'm a precocious punk teen,"
Yeah.
and then, oh well, now I'm in a world that's run by women. I guess you're kind of cool. And
Mm-hmm.
then she's just now I'll wear bright, pretty pink.
Yeah.
Where it's like maybe she stays punky, but she respects Barbie because
Sure.
you too can be pretty and pink and whatever and
Mm-hmm.
still be cool,
Yeah.
and I can be cool with my dark grunge thing or whatever.
Yeah. She needed a little speech with Barbie of kind of apologizing. I know I said all these things of how bad you were for kids, but now I see the air and yada yada.
I think that's the other thing that I wanted to say. If I'm, it's the thing that holds it back, but also is in its favor is that it's a movie that anyone can see in
Mm-hmm.
terms like kids can see this
Yeah.
movie because it's not really offensive,
No.
but it's also not made for kids. It's very
Sure.
much adult. There's adult jokes. There's it's a quality made film that I think it's for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it also doesn't really have because it doesn't have a target audience. Its message is kind of like um uh we have to give all context so everyone knows what's going on. We have to not be preachy, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's all there, so you're not really having to think. It's not trying to be you get what I'm trying to say?
I mean, I understand, but you need those last few words to
Yeah,
finish your point.
it's like Oscar quality filmmaking, and there's all these elements of just like this is a great film that feels slightly dumbed down because it has to be okay for young audiences to watch.
It's a story that has something to say, but is also a big corporate product tie-in
Yeah,
sort of thing. It's like if Battleship had something really important to say about the military industrial
industrial
complex
yeah.
or what it's like fighting invaders or immigrants, like if it had something bigger to say, you'd be like, oh wow, I didn't expect that out of a Battleship movie.
Yeah.
And so I think with a lot of people it's like, well, Barbie should just be fun and for everyone, and it's just a good old time, and they're not expecting the message, but the message is good enough that it elevates the movie to being a real piece of art and not just a commercial piece of shit.
Yeah. Transforms.
Yes, yes. Has
Yeah.
nothing to say, and it just wants to show you all the things.
Yeah, I think if you ask, oh, who's this movie for? You can say everyone, but it's like
Yeah,
it's the Barbie. It's the Barbie movie. It should be for little girls.
Yeah,
But I mean, Barbie's also been around for 60 years or more, whatever. So
yeah,
it's like, but it's not really for kids. It's an adult movie
yeah,
with kid. It's an adult movie that's pandering to kids, and I don't want to say pandering in like
yeah.
a negative way. It's just it's trying to be all inclusive as Barbie should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that kind of holds it back some, if that makes any sense to
Sure.
anybody.
I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that younger kids who play with Barbies aren't going to quite get.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be things that the original people who played with Barbie, and then they see things like, the growing up skipper where you lift her
Mhm.
arm and her boobs gets bigger, and they go like, was that a thing? Like, I don't remember that ever being part of Barbie. Is that just something that they're taking liberties with? So you really kind of like, no matter who you are, you're going to miss something,
Yeah.
probably.
Well,
Unless you're me and I got it all.
well, that's the fun thing that I liked because I saw it with my wife was she was like, I had that doll,
Mm-hmm.
or oh, I had that playhouse, or whatever. Like she got a bunch of
Yeah.
references where it's like we watch a superhero movie, it's like, oh, well, actually, that superhero
Yeah.
or that guy,
Uh-huh.
he's going to be in the future movies, blah blah blah. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's all about Easter eggs. Where it's like I didn't get any of the goddamn Easter eggs in this movie, but she was just like, oh, that's so cool. I
Yeah.
had that same toy when I was a little girl. It's like, oh, that's so neat. Oh, that dress, I had the dress on my doll. It was very kind of cool and sweet to see her like have those moments that we've been having for
Forever.
decades.
Yeah. It's
And it's
very
like this
rare.
movie is for women, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be enjoyed by everybody.
Yeah.
So it's very accessible.
And
I
it's
had a great time. I like this movie.
I did too. And it's different than Mario. And I don't know how to put it to words where Mario has like, look at this power up, look at this villain, look at all these things from these games that we're not going to explain or do anything, but it's here. And then Barbie kind of does the same thing, but I don't feel as annoyed when they just kind of have the Barbie playhouse that does exist somewhere, or a certain type of Barbie that has a video camera in her fucking chest and a TV in her back. Yeah, and I don't know why it works more for Barbie, but not for Mario. It's like maybe because like these gags add something to the overall story in the
Yeah,
world,
there's
where with
satire
Mario it's
here where
just
it's
there.
taking itself seriously, even though it is silly and
Mm-hmm.
cartoony. This is silly and cartoony in a real world setting, which makes it funnier, I
Yeah.
think. Uh,
Well, yeah, I had a good time. I would say as of right now, it's probably on my top 10.
yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't know
where.
if it'll stay there, but
Yeah.
it's in the top 10.
Yeah, because I could have a movie that I rate an A and it not make my top 10. I know that sounds stupid, but there could be a movie that's a B minus that I enjoy more than an A movie. That sounds stupid, I know,
Yeah.
but that's just, how it works in my brain. Like, as a movie, this is only about a B minus movie, but I really enjoyed that B
Yeah,
minus.
it's that thing where you like Moonlight wins Best Picture, and you're like, I understand why.
Yeah.
It has all the markings for it.
Mhm.
I understand why this is the best film this year.
Did it make my list?
But am I gonna ever watch it again? Am I going to talk about it again? No.
Yeah.
So it might be an A movie. I don't know what your feeling is on Moonlight.
I haven't seen it, so.
Oh, okay. It's like maybe it's an A movie to you in respect, but it's not a movie I care for.
Yeah.
So it didn't make my top 10 that year or whatever.
Most of the top 10's like, I want to own this movie. I want to rewatch this movie.
Yeah.
But
I could talk about this movie for a long time.
Yeah. Anything else? Any jokes you want to mention, or?
I think the joke that made me laugh the hardest. I always enjoy fake commercials. So the Depression Barbie commercial. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Made me laugh. Just all these dolls that were just crying. It's like, oh, well, it's anxiety Barbie or whatever. I don't know. I thought that would really work for me. Oh, and I want to say, I don't know why, but I loved it. Was Barbie sitting on the bench and she turns to that really old woman and just like, hey, you're so beautiful. And I was like, God damn it,
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
Let's tell everybody they're beautiful.
And then the old lady goes, oh, I know it.
I know. I thought that was a really sweet moment. I loved it. The real...
She's dead.
She's got to be dead.
She's dead.
It's just Barbie walked away and she kept looking back.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until just now. I was like, was that supposed to be someone important in the Barbie real world universe?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I just really like that scene. And that's all I'll say about Barbie.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want to move on to Oppenheimer?
Sure.
All right. Oppenheimer, the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who y'all know who that is. He made Batman. He did that magic
made a couple
movie.
of hits here and there.
He's got that dream twisty movie. He's got the Space Dad with all the corn. He's you know.
You're so good at explaining movies.
The Space Dad with the corn. You know what that is. So Oppenheimer, I'm going to start with you. What's this 3-hour movie about?
Well, Oppenheimer is about J. Robert Oppenheimer and how he became the man who was chosen by our U.S. government to build a weapon to hopefully end World War II.
Hopefully use it on the Nazis, but whoever's sticking around, we'll use it on them. That's fine.
So the world discovers that they can split the atom, and basically the entire world at this point knows they can use that to build a bomb. Now it's which country can build the bomb the fastest, and America recruits Oppenheimer because they think he's their best shot. at doing so, creating a weapon
Cool.
of mass destruction.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And like a lot of Nolan movies, we do a little bit of time jumping. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we're in the future or the end of Oppenheimer's life or closer to it, and then the prime building the bomb days, and then even earlier when he was just a student, we hop back and forth. And I'm gonna say that's probably the biggest detriment to this movie. I wish it was a little more linear,
Okay.
and you could kind of follow every step of the way instead of like, okay, so for an example, they're like, well, did you know that so and so was the mole? And they like cut back to a guy, and we had one scene with him, and like, yep, that was the mole, and moving on. And like, oh, okay, I can't sit with that at all. I don't know exactly. All the information was given, and I think if we were telling a more linear story, that's like a fun little chunk. But in this, they're more interested in just like getting out all the facts,
Mm-hmm.
and the story aspect is a little more with like him and his relationship with his ladies and his close friends. And I was hoping for more of
Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. I was hoping because like Chernobyl is really good about telling you its story and then breaking it all down at the end in the big court case.
Mm-hmm.
And since this does have a couple of like big court hearings, that's where I thought we were going. It was going to be kind of a little more of a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that. It gets a little bit of that at the end. And I think it works for like Batman Begins telling this non-linear story, but I think it's a bit much for this, especially when it's so long and has so many characters to keep hopping back and forth. Kind of made me lose interest
Okay.
at times.
I'll say I mostly disagree with that. I feel like I never had a problem following what was going on and who was. I mean, there's so many characters, and there's definitely
Mm-hmm.
points where they'll say, "Oh, well, blah blah blah's name," and I was like, "Who's that
Who?
again?"
Yeah.
But relatively quickly, over the course of 3 hours, like
Yeah.
I pretty much learned everyone's names,
Mm-hmm.
or at least when they said it, I knew who they were talking about. So I never really lost track, and
No,
the
because
back and forth never really bothered me because I feel like anytime we jumped, we were never really there that long, which I know can be like, oh well, just as I was learning something, we're back in this other place.
yes,
But I mean, 95% of this movie is you never have Cillian Murphy off screen. This is
sure,
all
yeah,
him all the time.
yeah,
Uh, so it's not like we were getting multiple perspectives. Well, 90-10, because there's a big chunk that's just Robert Downey Jr.'s
yeah,
character,
yeah.
Strauss, who's essentially the villain of this movie. Although you don't quite know he's the villain
Until
until
the very,
the
very
end,
end, yeah.
which was kind of a okay, because I wasn't sure what his place was in this
Mm-hmm.
whole grand scheme of things. Um, but the jumping back and forth and around didn't bother me as much as but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm confused. I was confused because Nolan is kind of known for just telling you the story
Mm-hmm.
without it feeling too natural. Like Inception is nothing but
Exposition.
explaining the
Yeah.
rules of what we're doing, and it's less about the individual characters, except for like Leo. Same with same with like Tenet is kind of a movie you have to really go, well, this is what we're doing. And bear with me, it's a weird backwards thing, but just listen, this is what we're doing. And it's interesting. And this, they're doing the same sort of thing, but I didn't care about any of these characters, especially the women in this movie. Like Florence Pugh and
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt are kind of insufferable in this. And it's like just chock full with a bunch of dudes. Makes sense for the time. But then you had like the two female characters, and they're just like grating.
Oh.
Especially Florence Pugh. She's just like constantly, oh, I need you in my life, but fuck you for being in my life. I'm going to kill myself. Or am I? And it's just like, oh, get off the fucking screen, lady. And then his wife is just like, just, I don't.
It's funny that we were talking about Barbie. You're like, yeah, female power. This movie was like, yeah, these women are shrill bitches. They
And there's
need to
only
go.
2 of them. Oh, I'm sorry. There's what's her face from Juno in Dread,
Olivia Thirlby.
Olivia Thirlby, but she has like
God, you're
4
bad with
lines.
names.
I'm sorry, I don't remember Olivia Thirlby. I only know her for 3 movies, and the other one would be The Whackness.
Shout out to the Blackness.
Also good with
Yeah.
Josh Peck, who is also in this.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Look at that! Look at that!
I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah.
That's fun. Anyway,
Yeah, because everybody's in
well,
this fucking movie.
I get where you're coming from. That is one of my major problems, and Nolan is also known for this. Is just not having good female characters.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say they were annoying or insufferable. Yeah, their traits were drunk or angry.
Mhm.
But I think that didn't necessarily make them insufferable to me because they really only had like 6 minutes of screen time apiece. So yeah, Florence Pugh I think was the better character of the two because I feel like she had more.
She had like mental illness.
She had more to emote with. Where Emily Blunt was just like, oh man, I'm kind of in a shitty marriage, and so I drink all the time.
And now I'm in a marriage
but like,
with you.
You don't really get any semblance of why they love each other.
Yeah, because they're willing to like give up their fucking kid because it's just in the way, and they give it up to some friends.
Yeah. So I think
great
Emily Blunt is wasted in this movie, which is a shame. And Florence Pugh, her character could have stayed the same amount of screen time; it would have been fine. But you needed to make Emily Blunt shine, and you didn't. So now you just have 2 women that are 2 super talented actresses who I love in just about everything they're in, and they just do nothing with them. Florence Pugh is essentially just a naked sex beast in this movie for Cillian Murphy to be naked with.
Yeah, the bomb goes off and she turns into a naked sex beast.
And Nolan's not known for. He's never done nudity before.
No,
unless there was some in Insomnia, which I don't remember.
I don't. Yeah.
It's like he doesn't do nudity, and he even doesn't. I wouldn't even say he has like very sexual characters.
No, there's
like
very little romance.
The hottest scene in his movies might have been like Christian Bale kissing
Rachel
passionately,
maybe Leo in Inception, like pining for his wife. You know.
Did they even kiss in that movie?
I don't know.
My point is just like I appreciate Nolan for trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
Having a sex scene, having
let's give it up to him. He's trying something new.
But I don't. It was the least sexiest thing I think I've
especially when it's like
this year
in the courtroom and it's like Emily Blunt's looking at her as they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I know it's just in her head, but it's so dry and awful.
Yeah. So both the sex scenes in this movie are weird and just feel like this didn't need to be in here. So yeah, just that's one of the big shames of this movie is that. So very fast editing, very Aaron Sorkin-y dialogue. They're just going. It's pretty much all dialogue and one kind of big climactic. I don't want to say action sequence, but the explosion of the bomb is the tension fueled what the movie's been building towards.
So you want to talk about the bomb?
Sure, we can talk about the bomb.
What a fucking letdown.
I think it was smart for the marketing to not do anything with it.
Yeah.
Because one, it would have given it away, and two, if that's your climax, you want to build up that tension to it. I think leading up to it, very effective. Nolan does, I think, good work when it comes to building to a thing. Mm-hmm. And then you have the explosion, which there's no sound. You kind of get just vague glimpses.
Which I like.
Yeah, I like that. But I think it's in its favor to do it the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
Because the explosion's at night, so it also just kind of limits the visual of it. And it's just a big fireball. And everyone can praise, I can't believe it was done practically. Who fucking cares? But the big issue is, how many nuclear explosions have we seen over the past 50 years of films?
Sure.
So many. There's nothing he could have shot practically or visually that I think would have been any more interesting than anything we've seen before.
Looking at the archival footage of like the houses being blown away and things just getting wiped off and the shockwave being so huge, this just felt really underwhelming.
Sure, but think that's not the. I agree that I
I-
was expecting some horror show, just like the pure force and power to just have this thing that eviscerates a city full of people.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we don't see that.
It
But
could have been tasteless, but I really thought
think
we
you
were
could have-
gonna.
yeah, you could
get
have done the explosion, just saw the horror on the scientist's face of just like, holy shit, what have we created?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they knew what they were creating, and
Mhm.
they were excited that it worked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you saw the horror of what they all felt afterwards.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was just kind of it was an anticlimactic explosion from, you know, a director who we've seen do pretty impressive action sequences.
He ran a real plane into an airport.
So the explosion itself was just fine, but really it wasn't about the explosion. We all know how that story plays out.
It was for me. I was waiting for that bomb the whole time.
The movie's called Oppenheimer, not Atom Bomb.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it was about
It's
the
about
man.
Oppenheimer, but like, make me care about this dude. I didn't give a shit about Oppenheimer's struggles. I didn't enjoy watching him. Like, Cillian Murphy's a great actor, but I don't care about this character. And the person who I thought from trailers would be the worst was Matt Damon, but I actually enjoyed Matt Damon in this.
Yeah.
He's a little, I don't know, he sticks out a little. He doesn't really belong in that time period.
He's very Matt Damon-y.
Yeah, he's got a real Matt Damon face on him.
But well, I'll disagree with you in terms of I think Cillian Murphy's fantastic in this movie. I really really liked him. I think it's a great performance, and I thought I think when we think of scientists, they're never really cool unless they're Tony Stark.
Yeah.
You know, which is weird that Tony Stark is also in this. But it was interesting because I didn't know a thing about Oppenheimer going into this other than he's the guy who, you know, became death, the destroyer of worlds or whatever. But to find out, you know, he was a ladies' man and his wife and brother were in the Communist Party at one point, and he was just a big fan of, you know, the people in his field are all interesting, very smart men, and yeah, just because they're geniuses doesn't mean that they're lame-o dweebs with pocket protectors pushing up their glasses. Like,
he smoked. He was cool.
Yeah. He seemed pretty cool. So I think he did it. I mean, is Oppenheimer a funny guy? I mean, he's got kind of some jokes in this. But, you know, he's a leader of the people. He did a good job. He, you know, was a womanizer. There was more facets to him than I expected.
Sure.
So I was never bored with his character. I liked all the stuff with him going kind of toe-to-toe with Robert Downey Jr. Like, just, I think some of my favorite stuff was them sitting around like the round table with like the 8 guys, and they're all trying to figure out like what's the next step on this. I think there's some really great back and forth, but at the same time, another problem with Nolan movies is they're not really ever that funny.
Yeah.
Like the Dark Knight trilogy is probably his funniest.
There's
stuff.
some jokes in Inception as well.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, he's not incapable of humor.
Yeah.
It's just he's a sophisticated gentleman.
Yeah.
And I think humor is not his forte. And this movie definitely has jokes, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
But your main character is often very straight-faced and is just kind of everyone's pretty serious. But when you're making a massive death-dealing bomb, everyone should be kind of serious. They're all professionals. So it's not like a fun movie, which at 3 hours, you kind of want it to be a little bit fun here and there to sort of help the pacing and enjoyment of the film. And it lacks humor. It lacks interesting female characters. And
it lacks a cool nuclear explosion.
It lacks a cool nuclear explosion.
Explosion.
Yeah. So it's definitely not... I think there's an argument to be made that it's Nolan's best film, but it's definitely not his most watchable film.
Okay.
I think this film is for film buffs and dads who like history.
Yeah.
And nobody else.
Yeah, especially if you lived through this time and you're an old man, you're going to be like, oh, shit, yeah, I remember all these characters that were in politics at the time. Oh, McCarthyism, yeah, that was a big fucking deal. They would get it, where maybe I'm a little separated from that time period. When I hear people just go like, they're a bunch of commies. Like, shut up, you're a fucking moron. Yeah, I want to talk about that runtime.
Okay.
3 hours exactly. This felt like 8.
Really?
After the first hour, I checked my phone and went, holy fuck, I have 2 hours left of this? And then I was checking it about every 15 minutes, like, can we please get on with this shit? It dragged so long. I was just bored out of my fucking mind watching this movie.
Really? Interesting.
I'll tell you my score. I gave this movie a D. I don't like this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, Barbie wins by a landslide. It's going to make more money just because it's shorter and it has replayability.
Barbie's for everyone. Oppenheimer's for film buffs
specific
and dads who like
this
history.
is like Dunkirk for me. Dads who like history, and it's a movie I will never watch again. I think he's a great filmmaker, but like, yes, the fast editing, and the characters that I don't give a shit about, who just all they do is talk and explain, but what they're talking about is not piquing my interest. Yeah, I would not be surprised if this is on my worst of the year list.
Wow, I think that's kind of absurd, but
sure.
Fair enough. I would give this movie a B. I think with the fast editing and the performances, I think it really does make quality. I mean, Nolan always shoots. I think it's beautifully shot.
Yeah.
Ludwig Göransson's, if I'm saying his name, his score is very good.
Mm-hmm.
I've really enjoyed his stuff. Shout out because he worked with Donald Glover, and I'm glad he's Oscar winning and doing big shit. Was also he worked on Community as well. Shout out to Community. There's great filmmaking here and great performances all throughout. Robert Downey Jr. is going to get an Oscar nomination. For sure. Cillian Murphy's going to get an Oscar nomination.
Did I know Gary Oldman was in this? Was he in the advertisements at all?
No.
Okay.
I think it was announced he's in it. Like, it wasn't a secret, but they definitely didn't promote him. Because, and that's another thing, it's just everyone in this movie, it's like Scorsese. Everyone wants to be in a Nolan film.
Yeah.
There's so many good actors in this who are condensed down to a line or two.
Yeah.
You have Jack Quaid from The Boys. Josh Peck isn't like a famous actor, but it was cool to see him.
Yeah.
Olivia Thirlby, Gary Oldman's in one scene. Matt Damon, who's the lead and everything, is a secondary character. And back to Matt Damon real quick. I liked him. It's like the jock and the nerd teaming up and just their buddy. It's just like, look, I'm not as smart as you, but I have the money to get this or things done or whatever. I like that they always had each other's back, even the courtroom stuff. Jason Clarke and Tony Goldwyn
is it Jason Clarke? Who's Isaac Clarke? He's from Dead Space. Never mind.
Yeah, Jason Clarke is like the asshole in the not the courtroom, but their hearing or whatever. There's just so many good character actors who were just taking just minor roles just to be in a Nolan film.
Just to say he did it.
It speaks to what a director he is.
Yeah. I bet he's not a very fun guy to be around. Like whenever I hear him in interviews and they're talking about movies, he'll talk about some of his favorite movies that are like Tropic Thunder or Talladega Nights or something like. Oh, I didn't expect auteur Christopher Nolan to stoop down to that level. So I know, like, as a movie fan, he'd probably be really fun to talk to. But I think just like as a person, he seems like a drag.
Well, I saw a interview with him and Robert Downey Jr. and they had. He laughed a lot. Robert Downey Jr. is obviously a very funny man, but I think he's someone you can hang out with. But I would imagine on a movie set, he's just singularly focused and probably maybe not as fun to be around because it's like, I'm in director mode. But when he's at home, maybe he's just crushing brewskis and like flipping burgers on the grill back in England or something. Who knows? But either way, he makes good stuff. And I think this is an excellent film. And it's, as of right now, I would not be surprised if it's the film to beat for Best Picture. I'm not saying it's going to win because we still have 6
we have
months,
the back half
or
of
5
the
months
year.
To go.
That's where all the Oscar
it's definitely going
to
lose some steam when Oscar season rolls around, but it's definitely going to be nominated for a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I did have some sound issues in the beginning. My theater was so loud. Like the bass was shaking the theater.
Yeah.
And it was during the trailers. I was like, hopefully this is just a trailer thing.
Okay.
And by like 15 minutes of the movie, I could hear every word. It was still loud as shit, but
Hmm.
I don't think I had as many sound issues as other people have. But definitely in the beginning parts, I was like, I don't know what these fucking people are saying.
It wasn't Tenant levels of bad sound mixing, but there are parts where they're out in the New Mexico desert and the wind's whipping, and I'm like, I could hear them, but just adjust these levels, bring the wind down a little bit, bring the voices up, and I know he likes. Well, if you were in that moment, this is what it sounds like. I don't need to be in that moment. I need to hear your actors say their lines so I can follow your story. And I don't know why, being such a great director, that he fails time and time again with his sound. I don't fucking get it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to know more behind it because they do so much B-roll and behind the scenes and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. And I don't know if they really care about that anymore because no one buys
Yeah.
DVDs and stuff. But I would like to see a Nolan film done like the Lord of the Rings box set where they go through every
Sure.
aspect of the
Yeah.
filmmaking. Like, how does this fucking guy
Mm-hmm.
make this movie? I want to see him in the editing booth. I want to see him in the sound booth. I want to see him talking to
Casting and all that.
yeah, just going beat by beat how he's perfecting.
Mm-hmm.
If this was his magnum opus, give me the full story from beginning to end and
Yeah.
how it was created. Uh, it feels like we're shitting on, and there's definitely things not great about it. But I think this is a good film. I think it is. It checks all the film boxes, but in terms of
Yes.
entertainment boxes, it's severely lacking. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
movie I think I'll ever watch again, but I recognize the good over the bad. And I think I had one more point. Oh, let's just talk about the last third of the movie because it's pretty much 2 hours into it exactly where
Mm-hmm.
the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
Because I remember checking and I was like, oh, that's got to be close to the end. I was like, oh shit, there's still an hour left in this movie after the bomb
Yep.
goes off.
That was me.
And so we get all the courtroom stuff. And I think this is where Robert Downey Jr. really shines. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Cillian Murphy's stuff where he's in his sort of deposition or whatever.
Alden Ehrenreich, right?
Yeah.
He's in it.
Yeah. Where's Dane DeHaan been?
Dane DeHaan, Rami Malek, and then
Oscar winner Rami Malek gets
yeah,
like 2 lines in this movie.
and then he was. We were talking Black Mirror, and we were like, "Where's this guy been from the third episode with Aaron Paul? What's his fucking name?"
Oh, Josh Hart. Oh,
And
yeah,
then
Josh
Hartnett
Hartnett's in
shows
this
up,
movie.
and like he's older now, and seeing how big he is compared
Dude,
to
he's
everyone,
huge.
I didn't realize how big he is. I thought Aaron Paul's a small guy, so but. And I know he was up for Batman in Batman Begins at first, and I was always like, no, I don't see it. I see it
I see
now.
it now, yeah.
I absolutely see it now.
Uh,
But anywho, the courtroom scenes.
the courtroom scenes, Robert Downey Jr. is really good. Uh, I wish there was a little bit more of. You definitely got the sense of what he kind of felt after the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
You have, which I think is probably one of the more iconic scenes of the movie where he's making a speech and people will remember this day and we won the war kind of thing and everyone's cheering, but the sound goes out and he's walking and he like steps on a charred body and
that's my favorite
he
scene.
hears a scream. Like there's some really effective
Yeah.
imagery and stuff there, and sound design is really good.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for when all the sound drops out and it's just kind of muffled.
Um, and but at the same time, I feel like it never really hit what I was expecting in terms of his. And I don't know if Oppenheimer really felt so much like clearly it affected him to know that in a single day I made something that killed over 100,000 people and continued to kill even more people from radiation and after effects and damage and whatever. But it just kind of felt like, yeah, I'm bummed about it and everyone's giving me shit, but then I just get to go home.
Yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, I really like the final scene where you see his conversation with Einstein, and just like they're gonna come out. It was kind of like the ending of The Dark Knight. It's like they're gonna come after you because they can, or whatever. You can be the villain that they need to, or whatever. But just the idea of him going like, "Hey, I'm gonna make this thing, and maybe I've doomed the world with my creation." And then there's another idea. Did he make some monster that is now beyond our control. I mean, we haven't gone to nuclear war,
Yeah.
but we know there are nuclear warheads.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
A lot of countries have them.
We've seen
France has nukes. Who would think? Like, what does France need a nuke for?
And it's just an interesting idea. It's like we get just this small port. I mean, it's a big chunk of his life that we see, but it's condensed into 3 hours. And I think there's a bigger idea here that it hints at. It's just like, yeah, this man did this thing and ended the war and maybe saved a bunch of lives, but has he doomed humanity with the knowledge of, yeah, we can do this as many times as we want. We could wipe out humanity thanks to you if we decide to. And
I'm sure he thinks like, well, if I didn't, someone else would.
Yeah, and it's the classic scientist thing of, well, it's our job to create. It's not our job to do what we hand off our creation to other people to decide what to do with. We just make the thing.
Yeah.
We're not responsible for the after effects. We're just responsible. We do it because we need to see if we can, not if we should. Kind of.
Yep.
You know, the
Ian Malcolm
thing. So, and that's always an interesting thing, but it doesn't really go into that, which I'm not sure if it needs to, but that's always the interesting thing about science is like, how far is too far? Or is the whole point of science to push the boundaries and go farther and see where we can go, even if the effects are disastrous? You know, it's an interesting take on an interesting man, and I appreciate it being made.
I think if you want to watch something like this, watch Chernobyl. It's way more interesting. And I think this probably could have benefited from being like a 6-part miniseries. I know it's 3 hours and it's so long, but if you stretch it out more and we could focus on some of these times in his life where we could slow down and he is with family, or what do his kids think of his legacy? I think this story maybe deserves to be a little longer and you can really sit with some of the science. And because that was the thing I loved about Chernobyl is that very end, they walk you step by step of why this reactor exploded. And it makes sense. And I get it. I know nothing about how a nuclear reactor works, but I got it. This, it's all gibberish to me. They're saying things, and I just have to take their word
about
for
explaining the science to the audience.
We're doing science, so just believe us that we're doing. Like, okay, I guess they're just doing science.
Yeah, there's no paper flipping and
a pencil going through. Yeah, we didn't need any of that. But like,
look, we split an atom, it blows up, and
then it keeps splitting and blowing up, yeah.
But there's a part in this movie where they say there is a small chance that we set off a chain reaction and light the atmosphere on fire and kill up the entire planet. And it's like, then don't do that.
Yeah. Nope.
It's near zero. It's near zero. Yeah, but still don't do that.
But if we don't, someone else will. Yeah, it's that excuse that the government always uses. Well, if we use this, we can bring our boys home. It's always that. Like, well, you fuckers sent them there in the first place. You can bring them home whenever you want. You know, you're the government. You run the military.
Yeah, and I didn't note it. Well, there was a scene where they're trying to discuss where to place them. It's like we have 12 cities, but it's actually 11 because I took Kyoto off there because of its cultural significance, which I liked. Yeah. And it's also, but me and the wife honeymoon there, so we don't want to blow that up either. It's like, yeah, these people are the bad people, but we still want to like hang out where they live. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of just like, yeah, you just get to choose what city of innocent people you're gonna
like there are people who were living in that city that they spared would have no idea that they were spared, that they could have been wiped out completely, but because the president at the time, or whoever, that wasn't the president, no, whoever was high-ranking official like that place, they got to live, and then they have ancestors and stuff, and then another city, not so much.
Oh, what a terrible thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I think it was my older sister. My older sister and my dad love the Air Force and planes and, all that stuff. I was going to be meaner, but it's not my thing. I'm not a big wartime person. But, like, the guy who flew what's it called? The Fat Boy and Little Baby or something? The name of the bomb?
Isn't it the Enola Gay?
I mean, that was the plane, but the bombs were named the Fat Man and...
I think it was...
Little Baby, Little
Fat
Boy
or something like that.
Something like that.
Whatever.
Like, they got to meet that guy, and he's not lived a great life of just like being the person who dropped the bomb. Like, wow, that really lives with you.
Yeah, I'm sure
But
you could tell this story from a lot of different perspectives. Like, yeah, I'm the guy who made it. I'm the guy who ordered it. I'm the
mhm,
guy who dropped it. And they all might have different
yeah.
things about it, or they're all just like, yeah, man, we feel super fucking bad about it.
But there's so many military people where everything is always, well, I was just following orders. That's what you do in the military. You don't question what
Mm,
orders given, you just do it. And I'm surprised that, and maybe he did for a while, is just justify as I was doing orders. If it wasn't me, it'd be someone else. And yeah, it
yeah.
sucked, but I didn't create the bomb. I didn't give the orders to do it. I'm just following orders because I'm a military bootlicker guy. That's just what we do.
Yeah, the idea of, well, we got to drop one bomb to show we can do it. And we got to drop a second one to say we can do it anytime we
Yeah.
want. It's like, Jesus Christ. So it's
Yeah.
like, one bomb was enough, but you
Uh-huh.
really need to send the message home. And I mean, strategically, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, yeah, we really should only have to do this once, but we're going to do
But
it
just in
twice.
case.
It's
And when
like,
you look
oh,
at
God.
Japan, it's not as big as many places out there. And you
No.
think two nukes went off there, and you can still go there today. Like they rebuilt so incredibly fast. They know what they're doing. When the earthquakes happened and the nuclear power plant started leaking into the ocean and all the streets dropped in, like 18 days later, you were able to drive on those streets. It's totally different in America. We'll milk that for as long as humanly possible. But they're like so not
Efficient.
no, they got the ingenuity to really like go and just get the shit done.
Yeah. It's, I, I would love to go there and talk to people and just like, how do you feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
Even all these years later, it might be one of those things where so much time has passed. It's like, yeah, man, that happened to my great grandfather. Like, who gives a shit? I didn't know that guy. Like, yeah, it happened. It sucks. We all talk about it, but we don't really think about it because it
Mm-hmm.
sucks to think
Yeah.
about. Or maybe we all have, horror stories because, like, yeah, my grandfather was in the war. He saw the explosion from a distance, or my uncle had the radiation
Mm.
poisoning back then and fucked him up and basically melted from the inside out or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm sure there's a million horror stories. But at the same time, humans, we move on.
Yep.
We're allies with Japan now.
Mm-hmm.
They make a bunch of our shit. We love PlayStations.
Yep. Oh yeah. We love Nintendo.
I would love to go to Japan and see the whole. But it's crazy that America versus Japan, and it was just like a big war that we were in.
Yeah.
And Japan is like smaller than
It's
California.
like Florida. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if it's smaller than California.
It's
It's probably like our whole West Coast, like including
Sure.
Mexico. I bet it's something like that. There's this thread, I think it was on Reddit, and about how Albert Einstein created like hentai. And it's this long chain of like, well, because he helped in the creation of the nuclear bomb created like things like Godzilla, without the
Sure.
nuclear bomb, it really changed how they look at things and how, we see superheroes as, oh, they get hit by radiation, they turn into superheroes. And in Japan, like, no, you get hit by radiation, it's a huge, scary monster. And then it was just this long chain of eventually like getting to anime, and then anime leads to like hentai and all these depraved things. Like, yeah, if it wasn't for Albert Einstein, we wouldn't have fucking furry hentai stuff.
We were always going to have furry hentai.
Eventually, at some point, yeah.
Yeah, maybe not in the same way, but people were always going to draw things fucking each other.
Uh-huh.
That just seemed like that South Park joke. Was like polarities, South Pole, North Pole, just that whole
butt
chain.
sex.
But yeah.
Anywho, do you want to rank his filmography?
Sure.
So he has 12 movies. Now, I think both of us have 12 and 11 probably the same.
Probably.
I'm going to just say, like, number 12 for me is Following. It's a movie I haven't seen, but I know on other people's lists, it's generally always the last. It's his first movie. It's not going to be great compared to everything else.
Number 12 for me is also Following. I have seen it. And I remember going, like, there's something here, but it's definitely just a good student film.
Yeah.
Don't ask me what happens in it. It's been a long time, and I don't remember it. It's just, black and white student film. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a good starter for a young director. It's him trying things and figuring it out, but is it a great film? No, it's easily forgettable.
So we're gonna do these. I think we should do it one at a time, back and forth. We're just gonna be double talking about everything. So I'm gonna do my list. You do your list. Say what you want to say about whatever.
Okay.
All right. So as I said, number 12, Following. Number 11, Insomnia. Seen it once. I would like to go back to it. Didn't love it, but I remember it being fine. Number 10. Now, this is like, I consider, now these are the more official Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan has his style, and everything he did after Insomnia has been held as, wow, what a great filmmaker. So it's really kind of a top 10, and the other two
Yeah,
are just kind of
I
scooted to
agree.
the bottom.
I was looking at his filmography recently, and I was like, you know what? I really feel like he's only made 10
He's made
films.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
So number 10 is Dunkirk. I don't like Dunkirk. I think it's boring. And like I said, I'm not a war person, and this was an absolute slog. Number 9 is Oppenheimer. A lot of the same reasons. Way too long, and I just don't care. Number 8 is Dark Knight Rises. I think it's a good enough Batman movie, but it just doesn't quite hit the highs as the other two did. Number 7 is Tenet. I really like Tenet. I think it's fun. Um, Sound issues aside, and just being exposition, the whole time. It's a little bit weird. Like if you had a hard time following Memento, you may have a hard time following Tenet. It is a weird one, but I think the amount it took to plan it all out and what's going backwards, what's going forward, and make it all make sense and have this weird kind of double time loop fighting against each other is very, very impressive. Number 6 is Interstellar. I think I shit on Interstellar too much, mainly because our friend Nick, he loves it so much, and I don't think it's like a top 3 movie of his, but it is very good. It's got some really good performances, really great special effects, but something about the only thing stronger than gravity is love. Like that line is one of the worst lines he's ever written, and it's so cringy, and it really puts a big turd on this one. Number 5 is Inception. Really cool, but it is just explaining the plot as you're showing really cool effects, but some really cool effects. And a great cast, and I think probably the best cast of any of his movies. Number 4 is Dark Knight. Dark Knight is very good. I am not the Dark Knight lover that everybody else is. Two-Face got kind of I don't like how they handle Two-Face in the end. He just falls off a building. Like, not even a building. It's like a scaffolding. It's lame. But Heath Ledger's great. But the main problem is this is the start of Christian Bale's Batman Lewis. His really terrible, terrible Batman voice. Number 3, Batman Begins. The best Batman movie there is that isn't an animated thing. It's absolutely fantastic. And besides the costume, it's near perfect. Number 2 is Memento.
Did I get your top 3
No,
right?
you mixed 2 and 3. You put Batman Begins as number 2
Oh,
and
okay.
Memento as number 3.
I know what your top 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Haha.
So yes, you know me very well. Memento blew my freaking socks off. Like, this was one of the first time it really confused me, but it made me want to watch it again instantly. And like trying to learn as much as I can and piecing it together and talking with friends. It's just such a simple movie. And it in the vein of like a tenet of how do you make this work in the editing going forward and backwards at the same time, but to a lesser degree. But it's just so creative and clever, and I'm surprised he hasn't worked with Guy Pearce again. I don't know, maybe they don't get along or something. But just a great performance. And then number 1, if this isn't your number 1, I think we're going to end the podcast. No, in general, I don't see how any other movie on here beats the highs that is The Prestige. 2 of his best leads, Wolverine and Batman having a magic fight, and then Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson just are also there. But like,
Yeah. Tell me how good those two
I know.
are.
No, they're especially Rebecca Hall. Like, this is early days Rebecca Hall. Nobody really knew her by her name, and I think she gives a great performance. Um, What really? But like her, like not like
No, it's
knowing
a
that
good
she's married to
performance.
twins, but can't really say it, and it's
Yeah,
and then David Bowie as
Tesla.
Tesla is like the most perfect casting ever. I think he's amazing. And then you get Andy Serkis in a non motion capture role because at that time that was kind of rare for him. And it's just this is one of the only movies I left the theater and I walked up to the box office to buy the next showing because I was going to go right back in and see it because it blew my fucking socks off. But then I was hungry, and then so I was like, yeah, I better go eat, and I'll see this again. Food will always trump movies. I'm sorry, but yeah, I love that movie so much. Every rewatch, nothing fades. It's just beautiful looking, great performances, and a really cool concept. And that's my top 12.
All right. Well, we've already established Following 12, Insomnia 11.
Yep.
Now, some of these I might sit on and think, and they could switch in and out
Sure.
because they're all relatively close to each other. That being said, I think my list will be quite controversial to quite a few people.
Okay.
So at number 10, I'm sorry, is Tenet.
Okay.
I like Tenet. If you asked me to describe the plot, I couldn't do it. I think it really survives on its concept alone, and I kind of don't love that in movies where it's just, yeah, well, maybe our characters can fall to the wayside, maybe our story can fall to the wayside, but look how cool this is. And just this whole movie just feels like pretentious uh, ideas with fantastic action. It's arguably his best action sequences because I remember watching some of that and going like, how the fuck did they do this? Yeah. This is so
the
cool.
backwards fight is so amazing.
Yeah, there's impressive things at work here, but I feel like if you take those elements out, or just if someone else did those bits, this movie would be like poorly received across the board.
I know you didn't see Hypnotic, but Robert Rodriguez's Hypnotic is just like the poor man's Inception or Tenet.
Yeah,
and you can tell like director does matter.
Yeah, I think I needed to care about what was happening, and I didn't really because I was trying to figure out what the fuck was happening the whole time. I mean, even the main character doesn't have a name. He's just the protagonist.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty pretentious.
That's why it's number 10.
Okay.
At number 9, we have Oppenheimer. We've already established it's just there's good stuff here, and it could win Nolan some Oscars, but it's not a fun movie. It's not. You're not going to rewatch it all the time, especially at that runtime. I mean, a lot of his movies are 2.5 hours, but they have action sequences. They have solid humor. They have things to keep you engaged. They have large cast of characters who you all like them all versus just one singular character. Yeah. So there's just kind of too much going against Oppenheimer to be higher up on the list. This is probably the most controversial of them all. Memento at number 8. And I know that's absurd to just about every film fan. But once again, I feel like this is if we're talking about starter films, this is one of the best you could possibly have.
Yeah.
What a great showing of like young talent coming out the gate with something original and fun and cool. Well, not fun, but just
I think it's fun.
Just telling a detective story backwards. And I love detective stories. But once again, I think this is a movie that solely kind of hangs on its premise. And now I know there's a cut where they shoot it chronologically, and it still kind of works.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
I've never seen the linear cut or whatever. This is the movie that established Nolan's kind of style.
Yeah.
And what made him suitable for crime and non-linear storytelling, and so that kind of lended him to the Batman movies. But I rewatched this movie a couple years ago, and I just remember going like, oh yeah, this movie's like really slow and pretty pretentious, and it's just a cool idea that isn't all that fun to watch.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Alright.
Because
Psycho.
I showed it to my wife, and she couldn't have been less interested.
That's not for my buddy Raymond.
Yeah.
He's tried to watch it like 3 times, and like one was the first time he watched it. Second, it was like a couple weeks later, and then third was years later. He falls asleep every time. He thinks it's boring as fuck, and he doesn't like Memento. And to me, it's like saying like, oh, I don't like Shaun of the Dead. I'm like, how could you not like Shaun of the Dead? It's so much fun. But that's me.
It's just excellent filmmaking behind a movie that most people, I think, would enjoy. It's not for everyone. It's
No.
for film nerds.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm a film nerd,
Mm-hmm.
but
I think it sucks.
but I also enjoy watching things.
Mhm.
So, at number 7, I have Dunkirk. I think the more I saw this movie, the more I kind of appreciate it. I am a fan of war movies. I do think it's a cool idea to tell a movie in one day, one 1 hour, 1 minute, or whatever, however they're broken down. And a mostly unrecognizable cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was a pretty interesting take on war movies. One of my favorite movies from a couple years ago was 1917. And I appreciate it's doing something different in a war movie that I haven't seen before, while also keeping it kind of small, where there was always tension there, but it was never about the big battle sequence, even though there were some action sequences. So I thought it was just a very well-made movie that showed Nolan can do sort of more Oscar-baity stuff without necessarily hindering on the Batman movies or whatever. Number 6, we have Interstellar. It's a beautiful movie. There's really good performances in it. This is Nolan doing a ton of CGI versus being the guy I'm so against CGI.
Yeah.
Like, he's not afraid to use it. I think when he has to use it, he uses it well.
Mm-hmm. They invented new programs to see black holes just for this movie.
I think it has a great score, and there's some very memorable scenes. I think there's emotional moments that work very effectively. Like, everyone knows the McConaughey crying in front of the screen scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think, once again, calling out our friend Nick, there are reasons to really, really like this movie. But at the same time, it does have its issues that's why it's in the kind of middle of the list. At number 5, we have Rises. I don't hate Rises as much as a lot of people do. I also don't love it as much as a lot of people do. I think it is an excellent finale to this character, but you were never going to top The Dark Knight in terms of how you're going to end that. And fun fact for anyone listening, I was in The Dark Knight Rises. You will never see me, but I was in it.
Pick him out. If you can find the scene.
If you can find me, shoot me the screenshot because I like to see myself.
And also, why do you know what Steve looks like?
Yeah, creepo. So Dark Knight Rises holds a special place in my heart because it's the first major movie set I was ever on. And it was an experience I'll never forget. And I still think it's a super fun movie.
Wow, 3 of the 5 of the top 5 are Batman movies, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe.
He's good. The kid's good. At number 4 is Begins. We've had this conversation on why you love Begins more than The Dark Knight, and I hear you, but I feel like Batman Begins is a more traditional superhero movie.
Sure. Like,
there's been other superhero movies that sort of feel like this formula, but it's a great origin story to Batman, and definitely Gotham City looks like Gotham City in this movie versus future movies where it just looks like a normal city.
Chicago.
But it set the stage of what's to come at its highest, and I think that's why it falls at number 4. At number 3 is... Now, 3 and 2 I could interchange. But I'm going to put Prestige at number 3. Prestige is a pretty much perfect movie. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, so if I watch it recently, I might go yeah, it's better than Inception. But once again, you have female characters who are just there to be foils to... They're not really...
They got their purpose. They have more purpose than fucking Oppenheimer ladies.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But, you have 2 phenomenal actresses that are just kind of in the background. You have... Michael Caine, who is always delivering just great lines all the time. I love Michael Caine and just all of Nolan's stuff, really. And the back and forth between these 2 rivals is a ton of fun, and I've always been a fan of magic. I like seeing magic live or in movie form. Now You See Me Too and all that stuff. That's a little ridiculous. You're just doing crazy movie stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But I liked this kind of real take on it. And then I think it falls to number 3 because then you get into sort of this silly sci-fi stuff,
sure,
which I think kind of I liked they were twins all along. I liked him like I'm living the lie
Mm.
constantly because I'm going to be the best at my craft. And Hugh Jackman's obsession trying to take that, and then you get into, well, now I have like real
A
kind of
cloning
magic,
device,
yeah,
yeah.
a cloning device, and it just, I think the ending gets a little
Okay.
silly, and
Yeah.
that's why it falls to number three. Uh, and then at number two, I have Inception because you do have a big cast, and they are all used effectively.
Hmm.
And from, I think this is sort of Nolan at his most Nolan-y in terms
Hmm.
of, he did the Batman movies. Now this is one for him, and
Yeah.
it's original and it has clever ideas. It is smart without being pretentious. It is big budget action sequence without being dumbed down. It is exposition, but you can follow everything
Hmm. It's got a good mystery to
clear.
it.
Yeah, you don't know what's real, what isn't, but you're never like, this is absurd. Obviously, the flipping room is iconic.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, it's just, and it's got Leo, and Leo's great in everything. Um, Everyone, I think, in this movie is just knocking it out of the park. If there's one weakness, uh, it might be, I don't know.
The van driver.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I would say like Tom Hardy because he doesn't get as much as like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt or an Elliot Page. He's there, but he's kind of like of all everyone on the team, he's like right above Van Driver.
yeah, yeah.
And
Uh,
Killian Murphy's killing it in that one as well.
yeah,
Killian killing
just call him Kill Murphy because he's.
it.
Yeah. Uh, Anywho,
And
yeah,
the
I
number
I
one.
just think it's great. And then number one, it seems disingenuous to put it number one because it's such like, it's the bro movie
Yeah.
to put it number one. It's the
Yep.
movie that made everyone Nolan fanboys and has developed this cult. But I think you can't deny its place in his filmography and film in general. It's easily, I think, the best superhero movie ever made. It's one of the best crime movies ever made. It's got one
No,
of the
no,
greatest
God, no.
villains of all time.
Yes,
Uh,
that's the reason.
well, yeah, I mean, this movie is elevated because of him, but it's just great all the way through. Michael Caine is at his peak. Michael Caine's fantastic in this movie.
Sure.
Everyone is just, it's got so many iconic lines and scenes. It's endlessly rewatchable. It's just pretty fucking fantastic across the board. Yeah, I can't say anything that hasn't already been said a billion times about
Yeah.
Dark Knight, and I think that there are haters out there who, oh well, blah blah blah, but it's only good because of Heath Ledger. It's not only good because of Heath. There's everyone across the board, behind the camera, in front of the camera, is great. It's just, it
Sure.
is without a doubt the Joker show because
Hmm.
of how good he fucking is in
Yeah.
this movie. But I don't think you should shit on the rest of the movie because one person's so good.
No, but if you took out Heath Ledger and you put in a bad Joker performance,
If you took out Nolan and put in
no,
Yule
no,
Bowl
no,
behind
no,
the
no,
camera, you're not getting a good movie
no,
either.
obviously, like he's holding a like if you took Christian Bale out and put someone else in, you could have the exact same movie or a better movie. Like that isn't as important. You do take Joker out and you put a worse actor, a worse take, something in it. That whole movie, I think, goes down because then all of its flaws really shine through. You know how they handle Two Face's death, how the Joker's plan makes absolutely no fucking sense. And I know he's an agent of chaos, but he would have to have like 50 different plans running at the same time in order to get any of it to work. Uh,
But I think you take the movie as is, not as, oh, what would fail if it has this, or if it would
sure,
succeed
yeah,
more
and
if it
you
has
take
this.
it as is,
And
and
I think
everybody.
as is, it's an important
I think
film.
people just look past the really stupid, the really bad stuff like Christian Bale's voice and pulling the bullet out of the wall to get a fingerprint, like all that stuff that is absolutely ridiculously dumb. And they just go, whatever, Batman's smart and the Joker is cool.
I don't know why the Batman voice bothers people so much.
Because it's so stupid.
Okay,
Because
it never bothered me.
it just gets worse with Rises. Like Pete Holmes really nailed that home
Yeah,
to
don't get
be
me wrong. Like,
as
I love the parodies. I think the voice is funny when done in a joking manner, but in terms of within the movie, watching it, I'm never like, oh god, this is ridiculous. Other than maybe the like, I'll put him in a body bag or something. Like there's this line or two where I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny how he delivered that, but it never.
Where's Rachel?
You've given the city everything, not everything, not yet. That's my favorite one. Not that it's even delivered poorly; it's just my favorite one to do.
But like even looking at him, it looks like he's purposely doing a silly. I know he's purposely doing it, but like it looks like he's not trying to be a cool, dark, scary sounding Batman. He looks like he's trying to make a silly Batman voice.
And look, I'm not saying Christian Bale is the Batman because we all know he's not.
Well,
but
we did a ranking, remember, and he ended up being the Batman. But
touche. I mean, but I'm saying he checks off all the boxes. Let's say number 2,
mm-hmm.
The voice, Conroy, the suit,
Affleck, one of them, yeah. The Bruce Wayne-iness, you can say is it Michael Keaton or even George Clooney,
yeah.
you know,
and the brooding Pattinson or whatever,
yeah, sure.
or whatever. They all have highs and lows.
Suit is Pattinson. Never mind.
Yeah,
Suit is Pattinson.
I didn't want to interrupt you or whatever. Yeah, so they all have their like bits and pieces. He just checks them off. I think the best across the board. So he's a B student while everyone else is like, yeah, I got an A in math, but a C in phys ed or whatever. Okay.
Sure.
But he's B's across the board.
Okay.
So he's Batman.
B for Bale in Batman. Yeah.
B Bale Batman. But yeah, I think it's undeniable. If you go on IMDb, and IMDb is not the quintessential be all end all of the top 250. But if you go on there, I think mostly you'll find the best films on there. But you also find something like Warrior starring Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy. Good movie, but top 250 of all time. Of
all time? Yeah, I don't know.
Probably doesn't need to be there. But Dark Knight, if I remember correctly, sits at number 4 of all time. Now,
is Parasite still number 2 or something?
No, Parasite I think is like 17 or 36 or something.
Because it was like up high when it was.
It's constantly shifting, and there's movies on there that definitely don't deserve to be on there.
Shawshank still number 1?
Shawshank will always be number 1. Well, I think that and Godfather are constantly going back and forth, but I think that's like, Shawshank's number 1, well, no, we need to bump up Godfather. They're just battling each other. But yeah, Shawshank's number 1, Godfather's number 2. I think Godfather Part 2 is number 3. And
then Dark Knight.
Dark Knight is number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think either of our top 3s is a perfectly acceptable top 3 in terms of Nolan. I don't think there's really a wrong answer. It's just your favorite.
Yeah. As long as you don't put Dunkirk at number 1 or or any higher than, I don't know, 8.
Yeah. I think I love that Nolan makes original stuff.
Yeah. Him, Tarantino, and Jordan Peele are like the last few that can do whatever they want.
I mean, I could see him maybe doing a Bond film, but I don't want him to.
No. But I do want him to go, because if you look at his IMDb, it's 1 for me, 1 for the studio, 1 for me. And I want that studio one again, because his last few have been all his stuff.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, Tenet, Dunkirk, Interstellar, those are all his movies, not adapted from anything else. And I kind of want to see him be forced to do someone else's work and see what it is now, because he hasn't done it since Dark Knight Rises, and before that it was Dark Knight. So I would love to see him get handed a script handed 10 script and like, you have to pick 1 and you have to do it. Because I think maybe him writing and directing everything's a little overbloated, and everything is going to start becoming a little more routine with his style of editing. I don't want, another biopic. I don't want another period piece. I would like to see him maybe tackle a horror, or even like a sci-fi horror or something. I want to see him just try to break out a little bit, because everything, his Tenet, his Inception, everything kind of feels very much almost in the same world. Like Inception and Tenet could be in the same world.
Sure.
Even his Batman movies could be in those worlds too. I would like to see him maybe a little more color, not grays and browns and blues. It's like, make him do like the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, make him do something like really crazy and out there.
Let me see Chris Nolan's Barbie,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about we would love to see Tarantino do sci-fi. We'd love to
Hmm.
see, any major director who we know always puts out quality stuff do something different.
Hmm.
Um, I think what I appreciate about Nolan is that he makes original big budget movies that people come out to see.
Hmm.
He's kind of our uh, generation, maybe not you and I, but like the new generation's Spielberg in the sense that
Sure.
like Spielberg always made stuff and he was making original stuff.
Hmm.
Not that he was writing or anything, but like he wasn't putting out franchise movies. He was making franchises
Hmm.
at best.
Yeah.
And they were always, people would come out to see a Spielberg film because they knew it was going to be good and it was going to be something they haven't seen before. And Nolan's doing that now. It's just Nolan's very much keeping it in line of his style, where Spielberg was always jumping in between
Yeah.
genres and styles. And so that's like their difference.
Hmm.
But I think whether you like him or think he's overrated or whatever, Nolan is important to movies right now because he makes movies that people want to see that they haven't seen before
Yeah.
using big budgets with top tier actors
Hmm.
and making them Oscar quality stuff and they make fucking money.
Yeah.
And that's,
Generally.
I think it's great.
Him and Tom Cruise are having a little bit of a beef because they both had IMAX movies, and Tom Cruise was upset that Mission Impossible would only be in IMAX for a week before Oppenheimer came in. And I don't see why anybody needs to watch Oppenheimer on an IMAX. It's not an
No.
IMAX movie. Maybe for the bomb scene, I guess, but even that was lame as fuck. What you don't? If anybody is wondering, am I going to lose anything? You don't need to. This is just a regular movie. I'd say this is a perfectly fine movie to even just see at home. Where Mission Impossible, that's a big screen movie. You want the biggest screen for that.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I mean, there's beautiful wide vistas in
Sure.
Oppenheimer, but they're not the focus,
No.
really. The fact that the whole movie's shot in IMAX,
Yeah.
I believe, is crazy
Yeah.
because the majority of this movie takes place inside.
Yeah. A lot of it.
And I mean,
In
yeah,
classrooms and small.
classrooms, boardrooms, courtrooms,
Yeah.
which you don't need IMAX cameras for.
No.
And yeah, you want to do IMAX for the bomb, I get it. But that is a 2 minute scene tops.
Maybe. Yeah.
And it's not even that
Yeah.
explosive of a scene.
Yeah, you're not seeing buildings getting wiped out and mountains moving. It is just an explosion in the
Yeah.
background.
So, I mean, I respect to the craft of using film and IMAX or whatever, but Oppenheimer, you can happily watch on your big 50-inch TV and not lose a goddamn thing.
Yep.
In my opinion, I'm sure he would argue against it and
Probably.
tell us we're dumb and wrong and
Mm-hmm.
get surround sound and all that shit. And you really feel the visceralness of the waves of the explosion.
Okay, I could get that. Like, you go for the IMAX because the sound quality, and he goes, I know I have a really bad sound guy, and you can't hear the words most of the time, so please see it in IMAX. They got the better surround sound. Maybe that's why he's asking us to do
Okay.
it. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's plenty.
How long did we talk for?
It's a pre-editing, an hour and 51 minutes.
Damn.
Which, like,
I can't believe it.
last week's episode had, so many things, and it was only 2 hours and 6 minutes. So, but we weren't not going to talk in length about these two movies. So it was probably good that we didn't have all the other shit to bog us down.
All right, so next week we got to do Greta Gerwig's top 10.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, she's only got 4 films, but we can make it work somehow.
Yeah, apparently she's doing, like, Narnia movies next for Netflix.
I heard that the other
and
day.
it was like, oh, do we need Narnia again? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, but it was one, I think, really great movie, and then one okay movie, and then one no one cared about, and the franchise died because the third one didn't make money.
And that's fine, because the books are bad, so who cares?
The books aren't great. But you can make... But the first one, I love. The Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe is great.
And it's a good movie. So we're done. We don't need to do it again.
But that's one great movie out of 7. If you could... I'm just saying I'm open to it. I'm not saying I need it or I care about it.
But it's weird that they'd say she's making 2. Is she redoing the other ones, or is she continuing with the series and going, oh, I'm going to do Silver Chair and, whatever, the other stuff? I don't know. It's just weird that it's just
I
two
just
movies.
heard about it and I didn't look into it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL Podcast at gmail.com. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. What's your Nolan top 12 list? Where were we way off the mark? I'm sure there's some Dunkirk fans or some Oppenheimer fans who are upset at how low we kept him, but whatever. Yell at us.
Go
It's
fuck your
engagement.
mothers. Cut that.
Well, I was talking in the middle, so you're gonna have to have that in. All right. Well, as always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming.